Have any questions for us before we started?
No, I'm good to go.
All right. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Blue STEM Award author chat. Today, we have author Kate Hannigan. We're really excited to ask her questions. My name is Kim Rudden. I am one of the publicity Blue STEM. I'm sorry, the Blue STEM publicity. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to turn over to Carolyn. Carolyn, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Kinsella, and I am the ISLE Executive Secretary, and ISLE is always excited to have our authors come because the Reader's Choice Award is a big deal for the ISLE people, for our membership. So we hope it's a big deal for our authors too, and for our students to participate in these author chats. So welcome from ISLE. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn, because I couldn't get any words formulated. We have schools from all over Illinois today. We have schools from Geneva, from Orland Park, from River Forest, from Greenbrier Elementary. So I am going to turn it over to Kate if she wants to introduce herself or say anything, and then we're going to get started with our questions, and we'll be starting with Ms. DeCourcy's class.
Okay, well, hi, you guys. I
Hello.
hope everybody's enjoying their lunch. I see a couple of people with some like soup or something. So hello. This is really exciting because I write alone in my house. I have 2 dogs that might go shooting past here or visit. So you might hear from them. But it's exciting for me to see you guys. And I think it's kind of exciting for you guys to see each other because you're seeing people who are like your people all over the state of Illinois. So that's really exciting that we can kind of get together like this. So that's one of the fun things about Zooming, I think, is that we can kind of pull together a little easier than kind of getting in a car and getting around. So I live on the south side of Chicago, and it was really fun for me to get to write the Great Chicago Fire because after the city gets wiped out, there's the World's Fair, the Columbian Exposition that kind of celebrates, look, Chicago is back. And there's one remaining building from the World's Fair, and it's the Museum of Science and Industry. Can anybody raise their hand if they've been to the Museum of Science and Industry? Because a lot of people have been there. So you guys, that's when you walk through there, you're walking through Chicago history, which I think is so exciting. So I had, we got a pandemic puppy. And so a big part of getting that dog out running around was I would take it to the grounds of the Museum of Science and Industry and his name is Kevin, let Kevin run around. So so I feel like I see things all over Chicago that they kind of harken back to this time in history. And so I think that's to me one of the things I find so exciting about learning about our past is that it's still present today. And there's so many echoes from things that happened back then to things that are happening today. So thanks for reading it.
Thank you. I know we can't keep that one on our shelves. All right, so students, we're going to turn it over to you. So just listen to the questions that are being asked because our time goes by really quickly. If somebody asks a question that you had in mind, that's okay. Just think of another one. So we're going to turn over to Ms. DeCourcy's class. We'll have your 2 students, and then Ms. Prisby, you'll be next.
Okay, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi,
Do you want to say your name?
hi, I'm Mason.
Mason, hi.
Mason.
Hi. My question is, what gave you the idea to create the book?
So I met an editor who was working on, see how it says History Comics right here? They also have a line called Science Comics. And so I met the guy who was the editor of Science Comics, and they hadn't come out with any history. And I said to him, you should really do history. It would be really cool in graphic novel format. And he said, we are, and we need somebody for Chicago. You're from Chicago, aren't you? And I was like, yes. So it was really exciting to me to I love our city. I think our city, like anybody around the country, should be reading about our city. It's an important city with an important history. So so that made me really fired up to take the opportunity. So love it, Chicago.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Mason.
Hi,
Mason, what's your name?
I'm Sloan.
So Sloan,
Sloan.
and what's your question?
Out of all the great disasters that have happened in our area, why Chicago Fire?
So out of all the different disasters, why Chicago Fire specifically?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. I like that. To me, the thing that I think is really significant is it's the idea that a great city could get wiped out and then rebuild. So when I was writing the book, I didn't want to end on a sad note. Wow, this great city burns to the ground. The end. I wanted to show how we rebuild. So I feel like while it's a tragic story, and there are many tragic stories that happen, right? Hurricanes wiped out Galveston, and there's a story, stories about that. The thing that really interested me about Chicago was how much it transformed all of our lives. Like the idea that from the ashes of the fire, the city rebuilds, and like the symbol of Chicago is the phoenix. So if you think about with Harry Potter, like Fawkes, the phoenix rises from the ashes, right? But among the things that grew out of the fire were things that we use today, like skyscrapers. The idea that instead of building 2-story buildings, they wanted to find materials that wouldn't burn to the ground. So they found new materials and new ways of building, and they realized they could go up higher and higher. So I think it's really kind of, while it's a tragedy, there's a lot of really great success stories. So the one message I want to come out with this book is bad things can happen in life, but we can rebuild and come back even better from them. So thank you. That's a good question.
All right, Miss Prisby's class, you're up next. And then after that, there'll be Miss Sanchez's class.
Okay, nice.
Hi, my name is Caius, and my question is, why did you write a nonfiction book with narrators? Why did you write a nonfiction book with narrators added as characters?
That's a great question. So I thought about how to present this. And what I really wanted to do was to kind of make it feel like you, the reader, have somebody grab you by the hand and take you through the fire. So I needed a hand, right? So that's why I made a couple kids. And then I really wanted to pull at your heartstrings, right? To show like, this was a scary thing. This is a scary thing for grownups to go through, but it was also a scary thing for kids to go through. So what really makes us sit up and pay attention is when something so innocent as a puppy is going through it too. I just thought that was another way to kind of make it kind of like up the stakes a little bit. So there's my favorite page in the book. If anybody has the book in front of them, my favorite page is page 33, because the illustrator, her name is Alex. She did the illustrations and I did the writing. So Alex did exactly what I was trying to do, which is show the Great Chicago Fire through the eyes of someone who lived it. And so when I found some of these historical records, these people who had written letters about what it was like when they looked at the sheets of fire. I mean, this person even says that great sheets of flame utterly flapped in the air like sails on a shipboard. And I thought, oh my God, how terrifying. Think about that. They were like 1,000 feet wide and 100 feet tall, like the big, if you can imagine a sailboat with the flapping sails, but those are flames. So I really wanted to pull readers into the story. And I think a way to do that is to personalize it, because I could have just laid out the facts, like, here's a fact, the fires were this tall. But if we have people that we kind of care about or recognize or kind of see ourselves, we go through it too. And we kind of see it and experience it a little more personally. So that's a great question. I hope I answered it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I was wondering what your inspiration for being an author is.
Oh, that's such a nice question. You guys. So I feel pretty plugged into the kid I was. I really loved being a kid. I wasn't a strong reader and I wasn't a strong writer. You know what I was really good at? Playing. So I always, if anybody ever has action figures, I always had like action figures in my pocket. And writing to me as a grown-up is the same world building kind of play that you do as a kid. You create worlds and you have good guys and bad guys and you name people. And I collect names all the time. Like I love hearing you guys come up and tell me your names. So growing up from that, I just love world building and creating stories and things like that, creating that same sort of fun I had when I was a kid. Plus I was always really nosy as a kid, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think being nosy is being a curious person, which is what research is, just being a curious person and engaging with the present and the past. And so, and I love words. So I think kind of all those things came together to make me always identify as a writer. Like when I was your age, I worked on the school newspaper. In high school, I worked on the school newspaper. So I did it in college. And then when I got out of college, I worked for newspapers because I love stories and people and what's happening in the world. So
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, Miss Sanchez class, you're up, and then we'll go back to Mr. Corsi's class after Miss Sanchez's class.
Oh, hello. I like your hat.
Hi, thank you. Hi, my name's Molly. And how long did it take for you to do research for this book?
Oh, wow. Great question. So there are a lot of people who are faster than me, but I usually take about a year for research and a year for writing, because I feel like you got to get the facts right. And if I'm writing for kids, I feel like if this is your first encounter with the fire, if this is your first encounter with some of this really important American history, I better get it right, so that takes a lot of time. So I actually, I would go, research to me was going to the Chicago History Museum and seeing what they have. They have like an entire exhibit on the fire, but then going up to their research rooms and kind of finding original, they call it primary source, but like the original letters that people wrote about having lived through it. And going through old newspapers, I found this really insulting thing. Like, I'm an Irish person. My grandparents were Irish immigrants. And so when I saw how much this is like kind of a replica of an actual magazine that ran right a month before the fire, making fun of Irish immigrants. And so it was easy to scapegoat Mrs. O'Leary because of the way attitudes were at the time. So it was really interesting to me to kind of research, go into the old newspapers and see what the feelings were at the time leading up to the fire, and then the accounts of the fire. So I don't know if I'm answering that. Did I answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Hey,
My name is Asha.
hi,
and-
Asha.
My question is, we know that you live in Chicago, but did you grow up in Chicago?
I did not. I grew up in Oklahoma. So yeah, my friends across the street had horses.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My brother wore a cowboy hat.
I would have never thought that. You're so Chicago. So Miss
I like
DeCourcy,
Chicago.
you're next, and then Miss Prisby, you'll be after their class.
Hi.
My name's Olivia, and my question is, how'd you come up with the personality for the characters?
Oh, that's great. Well, first of all, my daughter's name is Olivia, so I love your name. Yeah, I've got kids. I'm around kids a lot. I'm still in my head with the kid I was. So I just, kind of drew on people in my life, which is a fun thing to do when you're a writer. I don't know if there's if anybody can raise their hand. Is anybody a writer out there? Does anybody mess around trying to write stories? That's great. That's awesome. So do you use the people in your life? Do you ever use them as kind of your models? Like if you have a little sister, a little brother, or older sister, older brother. I'm the youngest of 3. So I really watched my big brother and sister. So it was fun for me to kind of bring in some of the things that I, see in the people in my life, which is a really powerful thing you can do as a writer. There's a lot of fun in that. So thank you. That was a great question, Olivia. Bye.
Hi, I'm Kylie. I was wondering if you make fiction books too.
I do
You
make
make
fiction
fiction
books.
books.
I do, because it is fun to just get lost in a story that's like playing out in your head. I like all kinds of books, nonfiction, fiction, graphic novels, traditional novels, all that. But sometimes my real love is historical fiction, where you get kind of the best of both worlds. You take something like, say, the Great Chicago Fire, and then maybe you have, a kid like you who's trying to go through it. And then maybe you see what home life is like. And this kid is, kind of more than what we have here, like more of a story of maybe, they've lost something that was their grandparents and they think it's gone forever in the fire. I mean, you could write anything, but historical fiction is a fun mashup of stuff that happened and stuff you're making up. So like my favorite, I wouldn't say I have a favorite book, but a book I really enjoyed researching and writing was something called The Detective's Assistant, which took place in downtown Chicago, right around the time of the Civil War. And it was about the earliest detectives. And there was this lady detective who lived, and I went to the cemetery where her grave is, and I touched her tombstone, and I whispered to her, "Grave, I'm going to tell your story, and I want to get it right." And I felt like, oh my God, this is so cool. This was a real person, and she's in the ground here, but history had forgotten her. So I put a kid like you on her doorstep. So we get the fictional, through the lens of a child that is made up in my head, and this real woman who's in the ground who lived this life as America's first woman detective. So that's a long answer.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, we'll go to Miss Prisby's class, and Miss Sanchez, you'll be next. And I just want to say my kids love the Detective Assistant, and we did go to the grave to see that after we read it, because they love that book
awesome.
so much. So yeah, that was
Thank
really fun to
you.
do.
That makes me happy. Cool. Hi.
My name is Kayla, and
Hey,
my
Kayla.
question: of all the of your books, which was the least fun to write and why?
Oh, that's a great question. Usually people ask what was the most fun. So least fun. What a good question. I don't think there is a least fun, and I don't know if that's a good enough answer. It's really fun to get to research stuff. It's really fun. Like you won't be able to see this, but if you can imagine, my laptop is sitting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books are directly under my laptop. They're all research books on my next project. And I seriously get up every morning, go make my pot of coffee, and I'm excited to jump back into this. So I wouldn't say I have a least favorite. I actually think I love them all. But thank you for a really awesome question. I've never been asked that. Bye.
Hi, I'm Tanvi, and I wanted to ask you, what's your favorite genre to write, and why do you prefer it?
Okay, so I have a couple that right now are my favorite. So I talked about historical fiction, which I love for the reasons I talked about. But another genre I love, and maybe you do too, I would love to hear what you love, is mystery. Do you ever read mysteries?
Yeah,
Do you like them? What's your favorite?
I like fiction.
Uh,
I don't really have a preferred fiction.
but do you
but
like
I-
fiction more than nonfiction?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And that's because you like kind of envisioning like a whole new world. Yeah. Yeah. I like mysteries right now because I feel like the author is layering in little surprises that they kind of want you, like breadcrumbs that they want you to pick up along the way. So I've been reading a lot of mysteries lately, and I've been working on a mystery that I hope makes it to library shelves soon. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's a fun one. Thank you. That's a fun question.
Okay, we're going to go to Miss Sanchez's class, and after Miss Sanchez's class, when we go back to Miss Dikorsky's, we'll do one question each and keep going till and see how many we can get done in our time. So Miss Sanchez, you guys can ask your 2 questions, and then when we go to Miss Dikorsky's, we'll start with one from each grade or each class. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Campbell, and what is your favorite or most interesting fact you learned about the Chicago fire?
Oh, let's talk. There are many fun things, but I would say the most fun thing that kind of made my jaw drop was when we talked about, the fire, after the fire happens and you have this like city that is, burned to the ground, and then the architects start to kind of try new materials. And there's this one architect, LeBaron Jenny is his last name. And he, let me see what it is. William LeBaron Jenny. I've got it on the page. I'm going to show you guys what page I'm talking about. On page 98 and 99, it's this guy. He comes home one night from work and he's talking to his wife, hello, dear. And she stands up and puts a book on their bird cage. And he stops and he looks at how this bird cage, this delicate metal bird cage, is holding this heavy object, this heavy book. And that's when he gets this idea that becomes skyscrapers. He realizes that you can have this metal skeleton that can support so much weight because it's distributed. And so suddenly buildings are able to go higher. That transformed everything, you guys, because if you think about it, if buildings are only like 2 stories high, there's only so many people you can put in there. But all of a sudden, if buildings can go up 12 stories, you could put hundreds of people in those buildings. So guess what happens? People who've been working on the farms and things can come into Chicago, ride a new invention called an elevator up to these higher floors and work. You could have a lot of people working in these buildings, and they can do, instead of farming jobs, they can do desk jobs. So if anybody has ever heard the term white collar jobs, it means not on the farm. It means you're wearing a collar to work and you're like an accountant, or you're working in an office. So suddenly Chicago becomes this hub for those types of jobs, accounting jobs and things like that. So we're kind of moving away from farming to being sort of this center for finance. And that's how, Chicago kind of becomes a big deal city, because there's a lot of money and jobs that have that type of finance and kind of businesses and stuff like that. So to me, the idea of a book on a birdcage changing the way a city is built is pretty cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. That was a good one. Hello.
My name is Celine,
Hi, Celine.
and if you weren't an author, what other job would you do?
I know exactly what I would do. Raise your hand if you're a dog lover. Any dog lovers out there? So I would be an agility trainer, because I have this border collie who he's brilliant, but he's also super fun. And so I would train him to be an agility, or a vet. I would be a veterinarian and save animals. How about you? What would you be if you could be anything?
A writer.
Oh, nice. Great. I'll look for your books when they're on the shelf.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and we're going to start with our one question from each. So go ahead, Ms. DeCourcy's class.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Jackson, and my question is, what's your favorite book that you made?
What's your favorite book that you made?
Okay. So if you go home and ask your parents, who's your favorite kid, most likely your parents are going to go, oh, I love all of you equally. So I would say, I love all my books equally, but I will say the one where, well, you know what? I was going to say The Detective's Assistant, because I've been to her grave and I talked to this, tombstone. But I have 3 books that are in a series, and they're about superheroes, and they're called Cape, Mask, and Boots. And when I was writing those, I tried to push myself to meet real people and talk to people about the characters I was putting in the book. I always try to put interesting people from history. So like in book 1, there was I put in these people who were the earliest computer coders, computer programmers. So they had passed away. They were all deceased, but the children of one of them were alive. So I contacted them. I reached out and I was like, hey, your mom did some pretty cool things. In another one of those, there was a pilot from World War II. I don't know if you like World War II history. But there was a woman I met who was a pilot and flew planes during the war. Women couldn't fight in the combat, but they did fly planes all over the country. They were called WASPs. And she was alive. She was 96. And so I was able to interview her. And so those 3 books, the third one, there was a little bit about a part of American history where Japanese Americans were interned in camps. And I reached out to a few people who had gone through that. They were still alive. So all 3 of those, I think they're not like my total favorite, because I like all of my books. I don't love one more than the other, but those 3 were really fun writing experiences, because I tried to talk to real human beings and ask questions about history. So that's a long answer. Did that answer it?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shreya.
Hi,
So
Shreya.
what is your writing process when you're writing?
Ooh, I like that sort of question. It sounds like you might be a writer if you're asking a writer process question. That's a fun one. Are you? Yes. Are you?
Oh, yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so writing. Okay, this is interesting, you guys. So my sister is a math person. She's always been, she loves math. She loves getting to the answer that she's looking for. And I respect that the woman can do math really well. But math is something that she can just plop down, grab a pencil and start going for. Writing, I think you kind of have to get yourself, I call it get in the zone. You got to get in the zone, which means you got to try to write every day. And so if you don't have a journal, please go get like a notebook, any kind of notebook. I always have a notebook right next to me and a pencil or just a spiral, anything, and just write every day, because there's something to be said from idea in your head going down your arm and coming out through your pencil. And once you start, within like 3 or 4 days, like your brain kind of sets itself up. I'm married to a neurologist, so we're always talking about brain patterns, but you're setting yourself up for really good habits and the writing will come, but it takes a while. So like I'm on a project right now and I had to kind of take a week of writing every day, and some of it's terrible, but just to get myself in the zone. And now when I sit down every day, it comes out. So I treat it like a 9-to-5 job. Some people go to the bank to go to work. I come down, sit down, have my cup of coffee, and I start writing, and I take a lunch break, and my dogs harass me and I take them on walks. But for the most part, I write every day as much as I can. And it's just like you get yourself into that zone and it comes out easily. Not easily, but it comes out more smoothly than if you just, I feel like it's just a different part of the brain than the math brain. The math brain, you sit down and you can jump on a project, a problem and solve it. Writing, I think you kind of need to I don't know, get in a routine and slowly get yourself to that zone.
Yeah. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question.
Bye.
Bye.
Great. So Miss Sanchez's class, and we'll end with Miss Sanchez's class because then everybody will have an equal amount of questions they've asked. And so we'll wrap up with your class.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Bella, and in the future, will you write more graphic novels about history?
Yes. In fact, I have one coming out on Halloween. It's called World War II on the Home Front. So when World War II happened, like 1 million people in the United States got to work. A lot of the men went overseas, either to Europe or to Japan, the Pacific, to fight the war. But all these things happened at home. When all the men left their jobs to go fight in the war, stuff still had to happen at home. So for the first time in American history, like moms stopped, women were able to step into these jobs as mathematicians, doctors, factory workers, really. And kids, a lot of kids in high school dropped out of high school to work in factories. Women started being bus drivers, taxi drivers, cowboys, lumberjacks, like all these jobs that the men were holding when they went to go fight in the war, the women stepped in. So it's called World War II on the Home Front, and it just looks at the home side of the war and how the main thing that was interesting was how everybody joined together. The whole country joined together to beat the Nazis. And it was a really, really big moment. And then, to look at it through a modern lens, you have to ask, wow, when we've had challenging times as a country, did we come together to kind of beat whatever the problem was, or were we kind of fractured? So one of the coolest parts about it is, in order to save on like rubber tires, because rubber was needed in the war, the whole country dropped the speed limit to 35 miles an hour. So if you're on a highway, say you're driving with your family in the next couple of days, you should look at how fast you're allowed to drive on a highway. You can drive 65, 70 miles an hour. You can drive really fast. During the war, all over the country, the top speed was 35 miles an hour. And that was to save on gas, but mostly to save on rubber tires, because they needed tires, rubber for the war effort. And everybody was good with it. And for kids, they banned sugar. What? So anyway, so there's some pretty cool stuff. So that, yeah, I see you guys going, yeah. So it's history, it's part of this history comics line, and it's a graphic novel. So cool. Thanks for asking. You're the first time I've ever talked about it, because I've just been working on it. and I just got the cover. They'll send you the cover like months in advance. So I know what the cover looks like. But I don't have it in my hands yet. It's still being produced somewhere, but it's coming out on Halloween.
I am
Okay,
so
thank
excited
you.
about that.
Thank you.
So excited about that. So thank you to Kate Hannigan for answering all of our awesome questions today. I learned a lot today, and I thought I knew most everything about you.
Yeah, great
Great
questions.
questions.
Yeah.
So good job, everyone. So thank you again. And students, if you want, you can unmute and say your goodbyes. And thank you again.
Bye.
Thanks, you guys. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
You guys can look over here and wave.
Thank you, Bluestone.
Thank you.
Let's see if my dog comes. You want to meet my dog? Come here, Kevin.
Yes.
Let's
Really
meet the
fast. I
dog.
won't hang you up. Kevin. He must be asleep. Oh, here. Come here. Come here. Here's Kevin.
Aw,
Bye.
thanks. That's
Bye,
been one
you
of
guys.
my favorite parts is seeing all the animals that
Yeah.
the authors bring on with them.
Come here. Come here. Yeah,
Thank
I think it
you.
was.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.